5.5 kilometers. That is how far the Russian T-72B3 was when the Ukrainian Leopard 2A6 fired a single shot. Across open terrain far beyond the distance that most tank crews in the world will ever experience in actual combat. The Russian tank, a supposedly modernized flagship of Russia's armored forces, never stood a chance. The round ADM-53 armor-piercing, fin-stabilized discarding sabot left the barrel of the Rheinmetall L-55 cannon at over 1,700 meters per second and punched through the armor of the T-72B3 as if it were made of cardboard. It is one of the longest confirmed tank-on-tank kills, not just in this war, but in the entire history of armored warfare. And it is only the tip of an iceberg that should send Moscow into a state of absolute panic. Because what Ukraine is doing right now with Western Leopard tanks, and we are going to show you every detail in the next few minutes, goes far beyond anything these machines were ever designed to do. They are turning old Leopard 1s into long-range artillery with a reach of up to 18 kilometers. They are making their tanks virtually immune to drone attacks using improvised protection systems. And they are training their crews with mixed reality technology that looks like it came straight out of a science fiction film. By the time you finish watching this, you will understand how a single Western weapons platform has changed the entire character of this war, and why Russia's armored force, once the pride of the Red Army, is now doomed. This is a story about innovation versus mass quality versus quantity, and an army that fights with intelligence against one that can only fight with bodies. To understand how revolutionary these developments truly are, you first have to grasp the context in which they are unfolding. This war is now in its fourth year. Since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Moscow has lost a staggering 11,848 tanks, according to confirmed figures, as of April 10, 2026. 11,848. Let that number sink in for a moment. That is more than the entire active tank inventory of most NATO member states combined. It is more tanks than France, Germany, and the United Kingdom own collectively. It represents a rate of destruction that is completely unprecedented in modern military history. And despite all the propaganda flowing out of the Kremlin about supposedly surging defense production, Russia cannot come anywhere close to replacing those astronomical losses. According to a detailed analysis by David Hambling, one of the most respected defense journalists in the world, who writes for Forbes and Aviation Week and published his findings in August 2025, the production of the T-90M, Russia's most modern serial production tank, the supposed pride of the Russian defense industry, has fallen off a cliff. Moscow officially claims to be producing 250 units per year, with plans to ramp up to 300 per year. Independent analysts who have examined actual delivery data and satellite imagery of the factory seriously doubt that the real number even reaches 100. The Ural-Vagonzavod plant in Nizhny Tagil, Russia's only factory capable of building new production T-90M tanks, is simultaneously struggling with Western sanctions that have cut off access to precision machine tools and high-quality microchips, and with a dramatic shortage of skilled workers that has been massively worsened by the mobilization of hundreds of thousands of men into the military. As Frontelligence Insight revealed in an exclusive analysis of internal Ural-Vagonzavod planning documents, the roadmap for the successor model, the T-90M2, stretches all the way to 2036 and looks ambitious on paper. But given the current production reality, it is nothing short of delusional. The raw truth is brutally simple. Russia is losing tanks dramatically faster than it can build new ones. And it is precisely into this context of deepening Russian weakness that a whole series of Ukrainian breakthroughs has now arrived shifting the already lopsided balance of power even further against Moscow. And this is where things start to get really serious. Let us begin with the first and most spectacular of these breakthroughs. On April 8, 2026, Euromaidan Press reported on an event that sent shockwaves through tank communities around the world. A crew of the Ukrainian armed forces fired their Leopard 2A6 at a Russian T-72B3 and hit it from a distance of 5.5 kilometers. Now you have to understand what that number means in practical terms. Most tank engagements in modern warfare take place at distances of 1 to 3 kilometers. At 5.5 kilometers, a tank crew can barely identify their target with the naked eye. It is a tiny speck on the horizon, virtually indistinguishable from the surrounding terrain. But the Leopard 2A6 is not an ordinary tank. It is the product of decades of German engineering excellence paired with the finest weapons technology that the Western defense industry has to offer. Its L55 cannon at 55 caliber lengths, the longest smoothbore gun mounted on any Western main battle tank in the world, gives the DM-53 kinetic energy penetrator a muzzle velocity of over 1,700 meters per second and a penetration capability that is still sufficient at that range to punch straight through the frontal armor of a T-72B3. The EMES-15 fire control system combines the latest generation of thermal imaging cameras with a laser rangefinder and calculates trajectory, wind drift, and target speed in fractions of a second. Belgian military experts quoted by bluewind.ch on April 12, 2026 explicitly confirmed the technical feasibility of this shot. The expert explained that the combination of the kinetic energy of the DM-53 round the superior ballistics of the long L55 barrel and the precision of the EMES-15 system makes such hits at extreme distances technically possible, even though they are extremely rare and extraordinarily difficult in practice. According to Army Recognition, which also published a detailed technical analysis of the incident, the skill of the Ukrainian crew played an equally critical role. The coordination with a forward reconnaissance drone that identified the target confirmed its position and verified the hit after the shot was fired has dramatically increased the effectiveness of the Leopard 2A6 at ranges well beyond the visual line of sight. So Ukraine did not just land an impressive one-off shot. They have developed an entire system of target acquisition and fire control that transforms the Leopard from a conventional battle tank into a precision weapon at distances that were considered impossible just 2 years ago. And that is the crucial point. What was once thought to be practically impossible, a tank-on-tank kill at over 5 kilometers, Ukraine has made into reality. For Russian tank crews, this is a nightmarish development. Their T-72B3s have an effective engagement range of 3 kilometers at best. That means a Ukrainian Leopard 2A6 can destroy them long before they even come within the range where their own fire would have any realistic chance of scoring a hit. It is a gunfight they cannot win by definition. But this is only the first act of this story. Because what Ukraine is simultaneously doing with its other Leopard models may be even more astonishing. And it involves an idea that no Western defense engineer would ever have come up with on their own. On April 7, 2026, just 1 day before the record-breaking kill shot, Defense Express reported on an innovation that fundamentally challenges the entire concept of how tanks are employed in combat. Ukrainian engineers and artillerymen have begun converting their older Leopard 1A5 tanks into improvised self-propelled guns. The principle is as simple as it is brilliant. The Leopard 1A5 is equipped with a 105mm rifled cannon that was originally designed exclusively for direct fire at visual range, meaning distances of 2 to 3 kilometers at most. Ukrainian artillerymen have now figured out through their own calculations and field experiments how to employ this cannon in indirect fire similar to a conventional howitzer, achieving a range of a remarkable 12 kilometers. With a new longer barrel, the report stated this range could be extended to as much as 18 kilometers. That is a tripling or even a six-fold increase over the original engagement distance. And what makes this even more remarkable is the fact that Ukrainian mechanics and artillery officers carried out these conversions under field conditions, not in a state-of-the-art workshop, but in improvised repair halls behind the front line, with limited tools and under the constant threat of Russian missiles and drones. In practical terms, what this means is that a tank built by Krauss-Maffei in the 1970s for engagements at visual range is now being used as a mobile, heavily armored artillery unit that fires from positions far behind its own front line, lands a hit, and changes position before the Russian counter-battery fire can even begin to respond. For Russia's artillerymen at the front, this is a tactical nightmare that undermines their entire counter-fire doctrine. They now have to contend not just with conventional artillery and rocket launchers, but also with armored platforms that fire from completely unexpected positions, are nearly impossible to locate, and are virtually invulnerable to anything short of a direct artillery hit. But before we get to that, this is a quick reminder that you are watching Russia Crisis Report. We bring you the full picture, not just the headlines. So hit subscribe to ensure you stay ahead of the curve. Now we come to the part of this story that may be the most impressive of all, and that demonstrates just how fundamentally Ukraine has solved the problem of the drone threat. On April 6, 2026, United 24 Media reported on an incident that left the entire military expert community in a state of astonishment. A single Leopard 1A5, belonging to Ukraine's 5th Heavy Mechanized Brigade, was attacked by 52 Russian drones in a single day. 52 separate attacks. FPV kamikaze drones and Molnya attack drones. Russia's currently preferred and most feared weapon against armored vehicles dove one after another at this single Ukrainian tank, and every single one of them failed. Not a single drone was able to penetrate the armor. Not a single one was able to injure the crew or even temporarily disable the vehicle. The tank kept fighting for the entire day. The mission continued as if nothing had happened. 52 drones, 0 breakthroughs, 0 effect. That is a success rate of exactly 0% for Russia's supposedly revolutionary drone weapon. How is that possible? The answer lies in an improvised protection system that Ukrainian soldiers themselves developed, tested, and perfected at the front. It carries the nickname Hedgehog. It is a layered defense concept that is almost elegant in its simplicity. The first layer consists of heavy steel cages that surround the turret and hull of the tank. These cages form a standoff barrier. They force the shaped charge warheads of incoming drones to detonate prematurely before the focused jet of molten metal can reach the actual armor plate beneath. When a shaped charge detonates outside its optimal standoff distance, it loses the vast majority of its penetration capability. The second layer consists of wooden boards and grids that serve as additional fragment absorbers, soaking up the residual energy of the detonation. And then comes what may be the cleverest element of the entire system: coiled steel cables strung around the exterior of the tank. When a drone flies toward the tank, its propellers get caught in these cables. The rotors jam. The drone loses power and either crashes or detonates outside the effective radius, causing no damage whatsoever. Steel, wood, and wire against high-tech drones. And the drones lose. As Euromaidan Press reported on April 7th, an Army recognition confirmed in a separate tactical analysis, the Hedgehog system is built on lessons learned that Ukrainian tank crews have gathered over many months of combat and shared through informal networks, Telegram groups, unit channels, direct conversations with other units across the front. It is not the product of a centralized defense procurement program or a major arms manufacturer. It is a textbook example of what military theorists call bottom-up innovation, soldiers at the front. Identify a problem, develop a practical solution, test it under real combat conditions, refine it based on what works and what does not, and share the results with the rest of the army. Russia's answer to this has been predictable and helpless: more drones. Still more drones. But if 52 are not enough to knock out a single tank, the fundamental question becomes how many Russia would actually need, and more importantly, whether it can afford them. Even using conservative estimates and pricing each FPV drone at just $300 to $500, Russia expended drones worth $15,000 to $25,000 against a single tank on that one day for absolutely zero effect. Scale that up across hundreds of tanks and thousands of days, and you are looking at the kind of arithmetic that drags war economies into the abyss. We showed in our video on Kyiv's drone strikes against Russia's oil infrastructure how this slow economic bleeding works on a macro scale. What is happening here with the drones is another symptom of the same disease Russia is bleeding out financially, materially, and morally. But Ukraine is not relying on frontline improvisation alone. It is simultaneously investing heavily in the next generation of tank crew training. On April 2, 2026, Business Insider reported that the Ukrainian armed forces have received 39 state-of-the-art mixed reality training systems. Delivered by the Norwegian company Find Reality and equipped with Varjo XR4 headsets, one of the most technically advanced extended reality systems currently available on the market. The total value of the package comes to $8.45 million. These systems allow Ukrainian tank crews to learn and perfect the operation of a Leopard 2A4 in a photorealistic virtual environment without ever having to move a real tank, burn real diesel, or fire real ammunition. According to the official press release from Varjo dated March 31, 2026, the XR4 headsets offer an optical resolution that approaches that of the human eye, combined with a latency so low that the virtual environment is virtually indistinguishable from reality. Jane's, the most respected defense intelligence publication in the world, confirmed the delivery and emphasized the strategic significance in an attrition war where every tank is precious and every experienced crew is practically irreplaceable. The ability to conduct hundreds of hours of realistic combat training without firing a single live round provides an enormous training advantage. Russia, meanwhile, trains its tank crews on outdated simulators based on Soviet-era technology from the 1980s, assuming the freshly mobilized crews receive any meaningful training at all before being thrown to the front. Reports from Russian military forums and intercepted communications suggest that many Russian tank crews are deployed with less than 4 weeks of basic training. 4 weeks. By contrast, Ukrainian crews using the new VR systems complete the equivalent of months of combat scenarios before they ever sit in a real tank. They learn to react under pressure, assess combat situations in fractions of a second, and function as a cohesive team, all in an environment so realistic that the transition to actual combat is nearly seamless. The contrast between the two sides is not just striking, it is devastating. And then there is one final puzzle piece that completes the picture. On March 19, 2026, Belgium completed the official handover of its Leopard 1A5BE tanks to Ukraine, a delivery that had been announced as far back as April 2025. And was now finally completed. What makes this Belgian variant particularly valuable is its Cockerel 3105 turret, developed by the Belgian defense company John Cockerell Defense. Unlike the standard Leopard 1 turret, the Cockerel 3105 offers an integrated indirect fire capability. That means these tanks can be used as a form of light artillery right out of the box, without the elaborate conversions and field modifications that Ukrainian engineers have to perform on the standard Leopard 1A5. In combination with the improvised artillery Leopards, the drone-resistant Hedgehog tanks, and the VR-trained Leopard, two crews, what emerges is a tactical ecosystem that is unique in the world in its versatility and adaptability, and that places Russia's commanders before a dilemma for which they have no solution. Because let us summarize what Russian units are now simultaneously facing. They are facing tanks that can destroy their T-72s from over 5 kilometers away, far beyond their own firing range. They are facing tanks that operate as concealed artillery from 12 to 18 kilometers away and are virtually impossible to track. They are facing tanks that survive dozens of drone attacks in a single day without sustaining any meaningful damage. And they are facing crews that have played through hundreds of combat scenarios in virtual reality simulators before they ever fired their first real round. Reports additionally suggest that Ukraine has begun applying the same Hedgehog principle to its M1A1 Abrams tanks, transforming these American fighting machines into heavily armored drone-resistant mobile artillery platforms. If confirmed, Russia is facing an entire spectrum of Western tanks, being used not merely as battle tanks, but as versatile weapons platforms, each with its own lethal specialization. This is not a fair fight. It never was. But the gap is growing wider with every week, every Ukrainian field experiment, and every Western delivery. For Russia's military leadership, this is an accelerating strategic catastrophe. They have lost nearly 12,000 tanks in 4 years of war, and their factories cannot close the gap. Their supposedly most modern tanks are being destroyed from distances that their own fire control systems cannot even realistically engage. Their drones, the wonder weapon on which they staked everything over the past 2 years, are bouncing harmlessly off improvised defense systems made from steel cable wooden planks and welding craftsmanship. And their freshly mobilized tank crews, who often receive only a few weeks of rudimentary training, are going up against opponents who have been trained in the most advanced virtual training environments in the world. What we are observing here is not an isolated tactical advantage for Ukraine. It is a systemic structural collapse on the Russian side that is deepening and accelerating with every month of this war. Ukraine is not simply fighting with better weapons. It is fighting with a fundamentally better system, a system that learns at the grassroots level, adapts in real time, and innovates continuously, while Russia's centralized, corrupt, and bureaucratic military machine slowly but unstoppably crumbles under the weight of its own losses, its incompetence, and its lies. The big question that everyone following this war should be asking is no longer whether Ukraine is technologically superior. It has been for a long time, and the gap is widening every single day. The question is, how long Russia is willing and able to pay this exponentially rising price, nearly 12,000 tanks, a collapsing defense industry that cannot deliver even half of its promised production, and hundreds of thousands of young men being sent in meat wave assaults into a war that their own leadership can no longer win. The Western Leopard tanks were not what started this war, but they may very well be what decides it, not as a single weapon, but as a platform on which Ukrainian creativity, Western technology, and the raw determination of a nation fighting for its survival converge to create something more powerful than anything Russia's generals can field against it. What comes next could change everything. And Russia will not be ready. As we showed in our analysis of Putin's imploding war economy, all the evidence suggests that Moscow's breaking point is closer than most people think. Because in the end, the numbers do not lie. And the numbers are on Ukraine's side. Find out more in our video on the 89,000 losses that are forcing Russia to its knees, and how Putin's war economy is imploding. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to Russia Crisis Report to see more of our coverage of the tank battle in Ukraine. And thank you as always for watching.